So to prepare for Yamadori, we're going to have Kevin and Ricky start us off. So,
and then we'll have other people who are extraordinarily knowledgeable in keeping things alive after you dig it up. You know, what we're going to be talking about is what to take with you, what to expect. Well, normally you're going to be going into cold weather, so dress appropriate. What?
Okay, in the middle. There you go.
I want to be off to the side.
You're good.
So dress appropriately, do things in layers. You can take things because you're going to get hot and sweaty, and you're going to want to take some of those, you know, shirts and sweatshirts off. And we're going to talk about what you should be taking with you. The first thing that you should be taking with you, besides gloves, are some loppers. You use loppers because if you look at some of these trees that were collected, they could be, you know, 8 feet tall, 6 feet tall, and you don't want to haul something 6 or 8 feet tall in the back of your truck. So you take and you cut this down to the size where it's manageable, where you can wrap it up and take it with you. And then I'm just going to talk about things that you should have. Knee pads or something, because you're going to be on your knees a lot, digging down around the tree, the base. You're going to be digging down approximately, 6 inches, maybe 18 inches, if you could dig that deep in some of the soil that we have, and then going up underneath the tree to dig it up. You're going to want something like this that you can kind of work around the soil just to break it loose. Just don't have soil on it that has been used, or a chipping hammer, which is very good just to go around the perimeter of the tree. You want to stay away from the trunk of the tree, and other people will tell you about how far out to dig and what to look for. Gloves, we talked about that. And either a saw or a sawzall. You know, the sawzalls are really nice because you're going to be, besides loppers, you're going to have some trunks that are too big to cut off. So a battery-powered sawzall is really nice to have. I even have a chipping hammer to go through rocks if you're looking at like the side of an embankment. So I've actually used it to chip away the sides of an embankment in order to pull a tree or get the roots loose. So gloves mandatory, clothes optional, loppers, knee pads, or something to get on. You're also going to be taking a baggie with you, some big bag, something with twine. You can wrap these trees up. Spare batteries or a battery charger if you run out of power. And that's all I have to say. It's things that you will need.
okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. Yep. So before you actually start using these tools and you start digging this stuff up, Ryan suggested, and these are great suggestions that you should consider, there's some things that you can do before you actually get out to the location. One of those things is actually do a Google map of the area, Google Earth of the area. Kind of give you an idea of the terrain, give you an idea of what it looks like out there, what you're going to be dealing with when you go. Because a lot of times we think, well, we're going out to these 10 acres and we don't know what necessarily is out there, and we're going to be able on flat land, and we're just going to see all these trees out there. Folks, that's not the case. More often than that, we're dealing with 10 acres. You're dealing with small hills. You're dealing with rocky areas. Terrain in certain areas is really rough, right? You want to have the right shoes for that stuff. You're not going to know what you should take unless you look ahead of time or you already have a feel for what the area is like, okay? You want to make sure that the dig is actually still on. You want to make sure that there is confirmation that we are going to be able to go out there. Unfortunately, there are times when the owner says, hey, you know what, I had an emergency, I'm not going to be there, and I really don't feel comfortable with people being out there that are not my family. So can we do it another day? Can we do it a different day? So you want to make sure that the dig is definitely still on, things are confirmed, that we can actually go out there and feel comfortable and feel safe. Kevin talked about clothing a little bit. You know, make sure that you bring, if it's going to be a cold morning, that you're bringing your gloves, that you're bringing clothes that's appropriate. I always suggest that you layer your clothing, because as you're walking, as you're moving around, as the day starts to get a little more light, if it's a good weather day, it gets hot. It gets hot. And so taking off that first jacket is probably a good thing. As it continues through the day and you're walking and you're moving and you're climbing, it gets a little more hotter. Taking off that next jacket, again, a good idea. Make sure you're still having clothes that keeps you warm, that keeps you comfortable, that's appropriate for the terrain. Again, if we've got a lot of spiky trees, if we've got a lot of cactus, you know, you might wear some boots. You might wear something that's comfortable for you that can deal with that. Wear jeans. You don't want to be wearing light, thin sweatsuits because again, they're going to get caught. You're going to get cut. You're going to get hurt. So, kind of think it through as you're preparing for that. A cap, a hood, a beanie, something that covers your ears. Again, it gets windy sometimes in the morning when you're starting out. So these are things that you want to make sure that you consider prior to going in. You also want to think about what it is that you're going out there for, right? We did that Google Earth search, and it's going to give us an idea of what kind of trees you might run into while out there. If you've got a Toyota Corolla, and that's what you're driving out there in, well, that's going to limit the type of trees you're going to be able to dig out and take back with you, right? I mean, the reality is, you're not going to be bringing much more than Shohin-sized trees, okay? And if you're got a big old truck, you got an SUV, you've got plenty of room that you can put stuff in. I've got a full escape. I've used that escape, and some of the guys have been out there with us when we've done our digs, when we've gone out there and we've got 3 or 4 trees, and it's just filled up the back of that escape. And the trees are only about this tall, you know, 2 feet, 2.5 feet, 3 feet tall. Well, that's all we could fit in ours. So we didn't go for something higher. That's also where, like Kevin talked about, this comes in, right? It helps us to shrink it down. So keep that in mind, what kind of trees you're going to be looking for and what your capacity is for them. Okay? Yes?
Maybe people can say the places that we're going, what are the likely species that we're going to find?
Texas native.
Like,
So
what are some of those?
juniper ash, some oak, some weesash, some elm,
Cedar.
cedar elm, right? Persimmon. You know, weesash, right? There's a bunch of native trees that we're looking at, but the ones I typically see a lot of is the juniper ash, the cedar. That's typically what you see. Very rarely do you see tropicals that are planted out there, but every once in a while you'll see a crepe myrtle. You'll catch a crepe myrtle out there. Somebody maybe plants it, or somehow or another a bougainvillea wound up nestling somewhere, and a bird brings it over or something to that effect. And yeah, you know, you find that rare one out there. But again, that's why you try to do it ahead of time. That's why you try to look ahead of time if you can, if you have that ability. Ricky, is there something that you want to add on? If I missed something?
Yeah, so another thing would be to sharpen your tools. Say you've had these for a few years, you've taken them out a few times. They start to get dull, and you don't realize it until you're out there digging, trying to, you know, break ground, and it's not doing you any good. So just check the condition of your tools, no cracks. The night before really would be the best time, or maybe the day before. So if you do have a damaged tool, you can go out and replace or repair it. Gas up the night before, check your tools the night before, charge your batteries. You always want to be prepared. You don't want to be on the way out and realize, oh, I don't have a tool to dig, which has actually happened to me before. Gabe had to help me out a few times.
And that's a good point in and of itself, right? So you're going in groups. Go with the mindset that you're going to share and that you might be able to share. So you might call your counterparts that are going on this particular dig and ask them, hey, you know what, and Kevin's done this for us, I don't have a saw. You know, I don't have a saw. can I borrow yours if I need it out there? And, yeah, sure, I'll do it for you, you know? And inevitably, he'll wind up doing it for us because, you know, we just didn't have the equipment. He wants to make sure it doesn't disappear. That's right. He wants to make sure it doesn't disappear. And I'm okay with the free labor, so you know that's all right. But keep that in mind. I'm going to invite somebody up here now who's been on some of these digs with us. That's done. Every time I've seen him do a dig, he's done an awesome job. Erwin, do you mind coming up? Do you have your backpack with you by chance? Excellent. Why don't you come up and talk about what you do to prepare for a dig and kind of what are the things that you look for?
So I carry this in every dig. So this is my 4th year in digging. So last year I was able to collect 3 ash juniper from Bernie, right here, and 1 mesquite in Hondo.
Yeah.
That's the one that Ricky helped me with. Almost gave up digging it, but Ricky said, just keep pushing, just keep digging, and he held out those reciprocating saw that helped cut those top root, and we were able to dig it, and then I potted it, and this is the growth since I dug it, and so it shut up all the leaves because of the weather right now. So this is my pack. As Kevin and Conrad and Vicky mentioned, some of the tools that I carry with me are this one, spray bottle. We need this because we need to keep the roots moist and not dry because we're taking it out of the ground, traveling. So that's very essential. Water bottle, of course.
That one's super important.
Yeah, water. And one of the important things too, I carry with me some ribbons with my initials on it, making sure that as soon as we get to the location, I personally scout the area, and then if I see a tree that I think I can dig and are good enough, I tie it, and other people would easily, see it that it's already been reserved. So
We all have forms flagging though.
I'm sorry.
Oh, your initials are on.
Yeah, I have my initials in it, so yeah, Kevin, you can't get it. So. Yeah, so
You know, along with what Erwin said with the water, you can get prepared. Snacks, because you kind of get hungry when you're out there, you know.
And that's
Bring some snacks.
a
That's
good
a
breakfast
That's a
before.
good point too. Is the food is like you want to eat before you go because you're gonna be there for a few hours. You're gonna get hungry. You're
There's
gonna
no bathrooms.
be hands and knees.
There's no bathrooms.
Working. You're gonna get hungry.
And make sure you get snacks that you can open. It does you no good to get snacks that you can't open, okay?
So I have my knee pads as well, my gloves, trash bag. That you can put your collected fees.
You're gonna collect litter out there?
Huh?
You're gonna collect litter?
No, well we can. And I got this. I get from Gabe. I just got this from a discount store or something for $1 or $2. So just like wrap it around. So make sure that the root ball with including the soil is like really compact and steady. So I've been digging ash juniper ever since my first 2 years. I wasn't so lucky to have it survive to live. But last year I think I did something good. Right. And I was talking to Jack Rice because the different thing I did last dig was I brought with me different size of pots and making sure that because as Conrad said, you can't determine or you won't know what kind of tree, how big it is that you'll be getting in the wall, but that makes it more fun. But yeah, so as soon as I dug this one out, I immediately went back to the car and potted it and tied it up with the bungee cord. Jack was saying, make sure that everything is like steady and it won't shake as you travel back home because those tiny roots that can break, it just like make your tree slowly die. So same thing with this one. This is 100% soil. I'm sorry, I cannot show you.
Okay.
Yeah, but these are like, sorry, so, yeah, so And this one is like a 50%, a little struggling, but it's getting there as compared to the two ones, which I immediately spotted. And so traveling back home is not shaking. For the first 2 years that I'm digging, I just like put them in the mind of getting it like rock steady traveling back home. So I think that's the one that I did correctly for that dig. So I'm sharing it with you so that you can somehow see how it went. So same thing with this one, because it's from a Honda. As soon as I get back to the car, I potted it right there. And so yeah. So basically that's
Okay. And that actually is a great segue to be able to ask if Jack will come up and share some of his years of knowledge in regards to digs, in particular with our juniper ashes. Jack, if you don't mind.
Would I say anything about birthday gifts?
We'll get to it. Absolutely. That's all on my list.
Now this is Kevin's stuff, but I'm just going to show you the difference. You know, I take gloves, I take water for myself, and I take water for the trees. And I take trash bags and a saw. But this is what I use almost exclusively because you can cut roots with it. You can dig around it, get your sawzall underneath it, which makes the job much quicker. And I'm all about being as quick as I can. This young man got 3 ash juniper and they're all doing real well. You can tell when they do well after the first year, you get these tips on them. And that's how you know they're real healthy. What I do is I don't mess with the tree for at least 2 years. Pot them up in 100% pumice. And this has the original soil on it. And it's bedded in pumice, but if I was to pick it up right now, you'd see little roots everywhere because they love pumice. I did kind of wire it a little bit just to open it up a little bit so everything gets sun. The real trick about collecting ash juniper is aftercare. You gotta water them thoroughly, and I don't mean water the soil thoroughly. I'm talking about watering the green part thoroughly and regularly for the first month at least. And the one thing that you can't do is water it too much. If you water this like you do something like this in your bonsai garden already, it'll drown. Because it's been sitting out there on a mountaintop somewhere. So that's how I handle it. This tree, I've had, I don't know, 5, 6, 8 years, something like that, and I slip potted it this summer due to the hot weather. I was watering it 4 times a day and it still needed water. So I'll repot it right now. The time to collect ash juniper is from about October until about February. If you go late into February, 20th, 25th, I've not had good success. I've dug them everywhere. You know, I cracked a rock once and took an ash juniper out of there, and I said, God, great, it's got roots, and I pulled this weed off and realized it had no roots at all. And I took that tree and potted it up in a container like that with regular potting soil, and I watered it every few days, and it grew roots. So you never know. I dug one out of a complete caliche pot, and it had no roots at all, and I said, well, that was worthless. Went back, did the same sort of thing, planted it in regular soil, potting soil, miracle grow, and it grew roots and did real fine.
Do you do rooting hormone? I've heard some people will take and maybe scarify underneath the base to encourage root growth. Would that help stimulate?
I'm sure it will, but I don't do it.
How about instead of pumice, planting in turfs?
I don't think turfus has the correct shape. If, the way I started using regular bonsai mix is I got a hold of some, you know, this is 30%, 33% pumice, 33% lava, and 33% akadama. And I don't know, the plant died or did something, and I had it just sitting there on the table, and all of a sudden there were roots, weeds all over it. And I'd pull these weeds out, and these weeds would be that tall, and they'd have roots on them that long. And all those roots were stuck to the pumice, which I thought was interesting. That's why I take them and put them in pumice now, and then after a year or two, I'll start taking that soil away, a third at a time or half at a time, and putting regular bonsai soil in there. And again, very few of my ash juniper do I actually water. Now I have a watering system, and that's how I do it because I travel a lot. But the sprinkling on the leaves really helps, particularly the aftercare. This tree, I slip potted it, like I said, in the middle of the summer because I just couldn't keep it healthy. And it's still not very healthy. I've had two very nice trees in my garden, ash juniper, that have gotten a terrible fungus on it. If I can remember what the fungus is, Formosus, is that it? Anyway, it's very difficult to get rid of. So the first thing you do when you collect an ash juniper is use a copper-based fungicide or the particular one that you like, and spray the heck out of it. Make sure it drips off all the leaves, get the underside of the leaves, and do it every week for about 3 weeks. And that should kill what's on it, or be a good preventative. And I think I have this is kind of important, so well, there you go. Just like every good phone, you can't find what you're looking for. But anyway, that's the one issue that I've had with ash juniper. What happens is, if you look real closely at this tree later on, you'll see some funny looking tips on the leaves, and then you'll see some discoloration down here, and that's an indication that it's coming back.
This is a silly question. How do you know it's a fungus?
Well,
What does it look
well, you can get an indication of it on this tree right now. You see the yellowing of the leaves a little bit, and you see some.
Jack, can we come up and look?
Oh, yeah. You guys can take a look.
What, do you want to put it up here?
What I did was I actually took a branch or a
Whitish?
branch and sent it off that. Now that's how it was. They misidentified. And I found, well, they would. Colin Lewis told me about Xeritol 2.0. And that's the thing I use to, it's the front is showing. So anyway, I sprayed it for a couple of years. I've been fighting this thing for 6 or 7 years. And I tried the Xeritol 2.0, that's the new and improved, and it didn't do much. It kind of controlled it, but it didn't eliminate it. And then I read their instruction booklet a little more carefully, and they said double the strength. And so I did, and it's, on at least the other trees, it has gotten it under control. I can see this one is starting to suffer a little bit.
Jack, let me ask, and this is something Kevin mentioned to me earlier that I did not know, but the year that you dig it, or that right away after you dig it and you potted it, can you move it around? Can you transport it, or is it better to just leave it in one spot and just leave it alone?
I collected 13 trees next to Big Bend National Park at a guy's ranch, and I came back, and they were all doing fine. Pines, pinyon pines, a madrone, several trees like that. And I put them on my tables, got them accustomed to when the sun comes up and all that kind of stuff, and when the water, doing it. We're doing fine, and I moved them all, and they all died. So
Is it just that movement, just breaking off those fine fiber roots?
We had a bonsai workshop when Guy Guidry was here last. And I took my tree down there and it was healthy as it could be. And we did a bunch of stuff to it. And when I came back, half that tree died. And that was the same thing, those little tiny fine feeder roots. The tips get broken, and when they get broken, that root doesn't do what it's supposed to do.
So best to leave it.
Well, that's what I do now.
Yes,
This
sir.
lady right here, she might move it all over her house, take it in the house, in the bathroom, whatever.
Put it on the TV.
Yeah, whatever. But that's what I do.
Yeah, and after Kevin told me about that, and that, again, I'm crediting Kevin for this, but when he told me about that, because I was going to bring one of the trees that I just recently dug, I started thinking about it, like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Moving it, shifting it around, soil moves a little bit, it's still not completely settled. You're going to break off some of those roots, and those fibrous roots is the only thing that's got it going. So it makes a lot of sense to just let it be, leave it in the spot that it's in, and allow it to establish itself a good year. Irvin said 2 years before he actually brought some of these out. So again, you got to figure out when it's the right time, but don't be moving it around all the time. You know, that first year and a half. Give it time to settle. Give it a chance to establish its root system, and then maybe you've got a shot at moving it around at that point.
Colin Lewis says 3 years before you mess with it.
There you go.
Yeah. Now this tree, like I said, I just stuck it in here and put pumice on it. It has the original root system. But you can see those wires are still there. And if you move the tree up here, it doesn't move down there. That's important.
Sure. You can leave that one out though. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Good information. So, we've got our tree, right? We found the tree that we want. We've got our tools. Do we just get in there and yank it and pull it out? What do we do? How do we get it out? Right? Well, one of the things that I was taught, one of the things that I've learned, is you look at the foliage, look how far it is on the outside, and that's kind of where you want to dig. You want to dig outside that ring of foliage. Why so far out? Any ideas? The roots. That's right. It's the root line. You want to give it the space so you're not damaging the roots as much as possible. So you're putting yourself further out. And if you can, as Urban talked about with the trash bags, right? That's why you're taking them. If you can, you want to take as much of that soil that it's been in as you possibly can. So if you can dig downward, get yourself all the way around a nice circle, and then using your shovel, it was an ant, dude, come on. Using your shovel, get underneath it, right? So that you can lift it out, so that you can get it out, and then you're going to save as much of that dirt as possible. It wants to be in the same dirt it's in. You're going to try and keep it as accustomed to what it was at when you're taking it home, when you're putting it in your pot at your car, or even if you've got the pot right there with you and doing it right then and there. Again, the importance of water, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing that as best as you can. You want to try to maintain it as best as you can. It has been my experience, and again, you heard Kevin and Jack both say that they've had different experience than what I'm about to tell you. But it's been my experience that when I take trees that are on rocks, that are in crevices of rocks, that don't have well-rooted, well-root system, that they don't survive. That I'm not good enough to care for them to help them to survive. But on the ones that I'm able to get the native soil with it, and I'm able to dig it out and actually get it into a bag and actually try to compact it and keep it safe and make sure it's well watered and everything, get it potted once I get home, those I've had some success. And so again, every one of us is different. Each one of us has our own experiences. But I can tell you that in the few that I've done, I have not been successful, and so I don't take those trees. For me, I just don't have the experience or the know-how, so I leave those, let them continue growing, let them be where they're at. Don't ruin them. Don't kill them for my greed. Let them continue. Go find one that I can actually work with. Okay? And you might think about that as you're going through. Think about what it is that you're looking for, and is this a tree that you really, really desire and you're really going to take care of it, you do your best to keep it? Or is it just a tree that looks pretty so you want to take it? If you're not going to maintain it, if you're not going to be able to maintain it, yeah, I'm suggesting don't do it. Okay? Pick and choose the trees that are appropriate for you. Okay? If you've had horrible luck with juniper ashes, learn about them before you go pulling one. That way, it has a great chance of survival. Ultimately, that's what our goal is to nurture them, to survive them, to show them in all their splendor and beauty, right? So again, be real selective about what you're choosing. Okay? I always go with my wife, who's not here tonight. She's busy taking care of some other stuff, but I always go with her. Inevitably, she walks in front and I'm carrying all the tools. And then, once we pull a tree out, I'm carrying all the tools out of the tree. So, what I started doing, and you can see, here's a cart, right? They probably use this to bring in Jack's trees or Irvin's trees, somebody's trees, right? This is gotta be somebody's. But there are pull carts that you can buy inexpensively, $30, $40, or you can actually put your shovel in, your jackhammer. You can wear your backpack, maybe some soil, some water maybe, and pull it so that you're not carrying everything the whole time through. Otherwise, what might be a 3-hour dig is going to turn into a 30-minute, I got my tree and I'm getting the hell out. Okay? So you want to be able to enjoy the experience and not wear yourself out. Do some things that will help you with that. If you've got a couple of people that can go with you that are going to carry stuff for you as well, hey, that's great. You got kids that are 20 years old, 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds that are kind of strong and they want to build up a little bit. Get your butt up in the morning. You're going to come with me and you're going to help me out. That's all there is to it, you know? So consider those things. Consider those things. All right? Anything else that we want to add before we get into care, caution, safety?
One thing that I would stress about aftercare is knowing your species. A lot of people see the junipers and it's like, oh, a juniper, that's what you see in bonsai. They're a conifer. A lot of conifers are a little trickier, especially when you start messing with the roots. I personally have dug things like what was this? Mesquite. A lot of deciduous trees you might find them a little bit easier to take care of if you're more of a beginner. Aftercare for the trees, like Jack was saying, watering the foliage. If you know about deciduous trees, you're probably not going to water the foliage. You're going to be watering the soil. Another thing would be if we're having a freeze.
Which we are.
Yeah, we are having a freeze. I've had trees that I collected, and then a month later we have a freeze, and I lose the tree. But it's not the tree's fault. It's not the weather's fault. It's my fault because I should have taken better care to protect the tree, put it in the garage, do things like that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay, so
He does a lot of mesquite.
I think 2. So I have one about this size, and one that's probably about double the size in trunk that I dug with Irvin.
How far down did you have to dig to get?
Surprisingly, I had almost no feeder roots. Yeah, it
What is
was
it?
a mesquite.
You won't keep it alive. You can't survive without tractor. It will choke its itself. You put it in a pot, leave it in a pot, it's gonna circle around there and choke its roots off. Seriously, I mean,
Yeah, I collected it last year. It thrived all summer. It lost its leaves. If it dies in the future, it may.
I'm not trying to.
No, you're 100% right.
Believe me, that is one tree I want to help on right now. But if you read up about them and everything, it says that it cannot survive without a taproot. It will continually make taproot, and you put it in a small pot, it's gonna do just like this and circle around there and end up choking its own roots off. But
I've also heard that.
I'll give you the best of luck. I'll tell you what, same thing with me. I was told I couldn't keep redwoods alive here either. I did for 18 years, and then I lost them to the freeze.
Yeah. I've heard similar things with oaks and whatnot too, so it's very possible. But as of right now, it is surviving.
Oh,
So
I guess, yeah, I was gonna say that too, so.
All right, so the last thing I want to bring up before we conclude today's lecture demo is, lecture, no demo, is safety items. So you're going to be playing with some pretty powerful tools if you've taken all the tools that we've talked about today. Easy to lose a finger with something like this, right? If you're using that saw that Kevin brought, chips are gonna fly out. So you want to bring the things that are necessary for you to be safe and to have an enjoyable experience while out there digging. Glasses. Just like any other workshop, you want to use glasses. Okay? Have the cover goggles for you. Gloves. You definitely want to use your gloves that will help protect you. You run into ants when you're digging through. I mean, that's their land, not yours. Right? If you got gloves and you're looking around, you're gonna see it. You can react to it. You can move away. You can dust off your hands. You can take off the gloves. It's also going to protect you from thorns and stickers and other uncomfortable items as you're doing your digs. Okay? We talked about knee pads. Absolutely. Knee pads are if you're going to be on your knees, you're going to be down there digging and you're going to be pulling some stuff around and you're going to be trying to get your tree out. Knee pads are great to have, or a pad, a gardener's pad. Okay? Same thing. You got one right here. Right? And I will tell you that if you're on your knees for 10, 15 minutes, especially someone like me that's still a little big, I turn around and sit down for a little bit and try to get myself comfortable. Nice to be on a pad of some sort. Really is. Okay? Kind of mentioned it, we said the bungee, but wearing a reflective jacket is not a bad thing either. Okay, you want other people to know where you're at. You want other people to be able to see you. You want to be able to find other people.
It is hunting season.
And it's hunting season. So if somebody goes in the wrong place at the wrong time, I mean, if you're wearing a reflective jacket, you're probably safe.
Brass cube like this.
Okay, so another good item to make sure that you bring along with yourself. What else am I missing?
Well, there's some trees over here that nobody talked about.
Oh, good. Let's bring those out. Don's? These are collected trees? Don, you know what to talk about?
What's neat about the fork, the road we have over here, I don't know if that's a secret prop or if it's just
no,
grouping and stuff.
that's not for it.
All right, then you can show that you don't have, guys, when you're looking at something, you don't have to have something that's 4 inches diameter just to make it look good bonsai. Look at the size of this. These are
Yeah, these are cedar elms. Something that they haven't talked about is what tree do you dig? I mean, the first thing you really should look at or think about is what I want to spend 2 hours trying to get out of the ground, but then when you get it home, you're going to spend years trying to develop it. So when you're looking at a tree, you want to look for things that can become a bonsai. If you dig a tree that's this big, in 5 years it's going to be about this big. You're not going to have a super huge wide base. You have to think about what you're collecting. Is it worth putting all that energy and time into? Some of the things I'm trained to do now is to study kokofu books and things like that, material. What do bonsais look like? When you're walking around out in the West Texas, also make sure that you remember where you park your car and where you are when you're out there. It's easy to get a little excited and go, wow, that tree looks good, and this little tree looks good, and you turn around and like nobody's around. But take some time and think about, what do I want out of a yamadori? I'll give you this one an example. This one is, I collected about 4 years ago. Yamadori actually just means from the mountain. So a lot of bonsai were Everett spruces, Everett spruces and stuff like that, that they would literally collect from the mountain. So they'd call it yamadori. And this one is not actually from the mountains, it's from my parents' front yard. It's urban Dory.
Or nature.
Our garden humidor. So when I collected this one, I didn't know what I was really going to do with it. They were removing a hedge, and I said, well, I want one. I said, Yukon holly, they grow well here. So I'd only been doing bonsai about 2 years. And so I didn't know what to do with it. I dug it out. I left it fairly tall. I had a nice growth here. I had a nice growth here. I thought it was going to be like this mother-daughter thing. And my sensei showed up and he said, you need to cut it back down to here, and you need to cut it back down to there, and I ended up with no branches on it. So after collecting it, growing it for 2 years, I literally ended up resetting the tree because it needed to be way down here and not way up here. So when you're collecting trees, a lot of collectors will actually look at the shape of the bonsai. They don't cut it down to get it in the car. They're looking at, I need to cut it back to here and see if it grows. I don't want to leave it this tall, then cut it back and find out it dies. So a lot of collectors will look at their bonsai, they'll make that cut on their bonsai when they're collecting. It's very common. When you're collecting, you don't have a whole lot of root structure that you're going to gain anyway. So you have to remove a lot of the foliage. So when you're out there, look for something that you want to spend your time on. Don't spend 4 hours trying to get a tree out of the ground that is not going to be a bonsai for 20 years. You know, that's probably not a good use of your time. So I would study, you know, what do they look like? And then when you are collecting, think about how far should I take it down? And you're going to have people like Conrad and several others here, like Irvin's been doing collecting for a while. They'll be able to help you know, through some of that. But I had this tree for 2 years and then reset it. You can see now it's growing back out. At some point, you can see the base of this tree. It's a huge Yukon holly. This is going to be a great tuning. You know, at some point it'll be a show tuning. So it'll end up being about like this. So only about 12 inches tall. So me putting the energy into this, into a tree that has a base like that, is really important, or it's worthwhile. In 5 years, all of these will be huge, overgrown, you know, my cuts. I'll have a show tree. So it got reset because when I collected it, I left things long. And so think about that when you're collecting. Can this tree become a good bonsai? This is a forest. I collected all of these to be in a forest. This is the first forest I've ever built. All of these were collected, all of these except for these two were collected in Jim's backyard. So Jim, thank you. You look at what I got, look at this guy. He is probably 10 years old. If I cut him, you know, he's probably a good, you know, age. He's got, you know, they're all cedar elms, they're all the same species. He's got great bark, he's got great movement, and I selected all of these for their movement so that I could put them together into a forest and generate that. I'm 2 years in on this one. So 2 years ago, I was in Jim's backyard collecting these. And so I put them into pots, made sure the roots grew. November 2022, I had to get some more because of some of the things that I collected didn't work. So I got lucky on that. I've lost one tree in this set. Usually on forest you want odd numbers up to about 9 or 13. And then it doesn't matter how many you use because the eye can't see it. Forest, we should do a forest lecture demo. Anyway, but all of these were collected with the intent to make a forest. So I selected each of the trees, I potted them, I waited my time. Jack said something about waiting 2 years before he starts putting it in a bonsai pot. He's not kidding. So when you go collecting something, it's all about time. Bonsai is all about time. And so think about what you're about to dig out of the ground. Is this something I want to put my time into? These were things I wanted to put my time into because I knew that they had lots of potential. And so have that in the back of your mind when you're, you know, looking at that rock you're about to, you know, try to get out of the West Texas dirt so you can get that spectacular tree. Any questions? Then I'm gonna turn it over to our esteemed
Very
president.
good. So Ricky, what are your plans with the mesquite? Are you gonna put something shallow or
That's-
broad? Oh, I mean urban, sorry.
Oh, Irvin, you just give it to me.
Sorry, the other way.
I'm sorry?
Well, a friend talk about.
Yeah, so my plan is, that said, I plan to put this in a bonsai pot. Probably not a real bonsai pot yet, probably still in a training one, but try to slowly, cut the taproot and hopefully I survive. So because I selected this because of the flow, the movement of the trunk, and I can see that there's a potential to become a good bonsai. So, but yeah, hopefully I'll just have this just growing some until probably a year or two. Establishing the roots is really important and making sure that it's healthy before I really train them as a bonsai. So that's basically.
Or do you think you're gonna trim off some of those longer shoots, and when would you do that?
Probably not this season, probably next year, and see how each of the branch will probably flow in terms of the design that I want to take on with this tree. So as I said, I just like let it grow wild and just choose which branch would I train and stick with it, or probably remove whatever.
Did you cut the over or something?
Not yet. I haven't. So I didn't touch this since I dug it. I just like let it in one place. So just feed it, and you can, it's morning sun, and then afternoon sun shaded, 30%, and then just feed it. Water it during summer twice a day. So,
You know, I'm looking at the base of that, trying to figure out how to put it something wider. This is just something I'm looking at. If you were to, I'm always gonna ask this, get everybody's opinion on this, take and cut all the way around here. Leave this just like it is, put this in a much wider pot, the same depth, to see if right, but not take it out or anything else. I wonder if that could, yes, go ahead.
That's not nursery pot. It's not nursery grown. Nursery grown stock usually goes down a long pot just for water. So you still have a big nursery base there. I wouldn't have a whole lot of plans about that. If you're gonna pop it out of the pot, I would carefully remove the soil once you get the roots off. Because they're not gonna be alive. And we don't want to lose root masses. So you only have roots when they're overgrown in your pot size. Nursery, you can get nursery stock. That's pretty common.
Was this a nursery stock tree or this is collected? This is collected. Yeah.
Yeah, that's collected, and that's what I'm saying, it's not a nursery tree.
Right, yeah.
Right, so on a nursery tree, you have this, it's been hothouse grown, right? So that whole pot would be full of roots. So you can rob off the bottom of it because you've got a huge root structure. That one being a young glory, it doesn't. Yeah, so when you take the soil off of it, and you've only had it for a year, so it's not gonna have a root ball yet. You wanna stay lower, so you wanna knock off the soil, not let it in the root, but knock off the soil, pick the roots and use that in your pot. And the only roots you wanna lose is, what will fit in your pot. So I wouldn't cut that one in half, but.
No, actually what I was talking about doing is cut the bottom of the pot, take the pot and just store it, remove that, leaving all bottom. I mean, the soil's still there at the bottom, but put it into a broader pot without interrupting the upper section. So you just take the plastic, you just cut scissors all the way around, halfway up, and just remove that one so you have the root mass still there, but you put that into a broader container. For that, to see it without disturbing, just give me
rooms are growing, and start growing loud.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Is this
I'm not a challenge with you on that. I mean, I love a challenge with them, but I did a talk with the Ag Extension Service. And one of the questions was, I made a comment about you can take 95% of trees in nature and make them into a bonsai, you know. And one of the questions was about the mesquite tree, which I turned and said I wanted to try, but I was worried about it because of stuff I've read. And the extension agent turned around and said, the reason why they're not very hard to even do it is because you take a 20-foot tall mesquite tree, the reason why it survives as much as it does, like the freeze and all that, because it has 140-foot taproot. And you won't end up with a root ball. It's going to shoot the taproot down. A 20-foot tree may not have a viable root for 4 foot deep. You know, and that's the problem with them. It's just one of those. You may prove everybody wrong, and I'd be tickled to see it. But the professionals, with the horticulture stuff of all the big trees in Texas, said it's not a problem.
Okay. Mr. Preston, question?
Yes, has anybody talked about raffle tickets?
Well, let me finish this and then we're
almost
done. We're almost done. So finishing up on again, safety measures. The last thing I want to say, take a first aid kit with you. Unfortunately, accidents happen. People get cut. If you've got a first aid kit, you've got Band-Aids, you've got maybe some hydrogen peroxide, you've got wrap that you can use. If you cut yourself pretty bad, obviously, you're going to want to stop the bleeding. If you're with people, make sure they know where you're at. Make sure they have an idea, so more or less where you're at. When you're leaving, make sure you let them know, whether it be through cell phone or you go and talk to them. That way they're not out there still waiting for you or looking for you before they leave. Take some of those common sense measures that we know of to make sure that it's a safe and fun experience, not just for you, but everybody else who's a part of it, okay? So without any further ado,
Also, and take a whistle. If you guys have a whistle in case you guys do fall or something, go ahead and blow that whistle. At least you can make noise. You're off by yourself, so you never know.
So all this are just some tips that we've experienced, things that we've gone through, that we wanted to present to you guys to help you to have a safe and fun experience when you go out and try to collect trees. Again, we have three tree gathering events going on this month and next month. You can sign up with Sign Up Genius and get yourself on there. It is limited, so we want to make sure that we try to fill it up as best that we can.